Hi there, my name's Simon Drew, and welcome to the Practical Stoic Podcast, where I give you practical Stoic advice for modern times. You can support the show by going to patreon.com/Simon Drew. I also do one-on-one mindset coaching, and you can book in your first free consultation by going to risetothegoodlife.com/coaching. On Facebook, you can join my group, the Practical Stoic Mastermind. But for now, enjoy this episode. Hi there, my name's Simon Drew, and welcome to the Practical Stoic Podcast. And in today's episode, it's a really different one because it's actually an interview with myself. And so let me explain. Last week, my brother actually came over from Washington, D.C. To Australia to attend the funeral of my grandma. And while he was here, he kind of said to me, hey, wouldn't it be interesting if I interviewed you? Because maybe there's some things about your own life that your audience might like to know, and we could have a good time doing an interview here. And so we kind of agreed, and then my brother interviewed me. So I hope you enjoy it, and I'll just let you know that at around the 43-minute mark, it'll actually start getting more into the philosophy side of things and more practical advice for your life. Before that, I tell stories about how I met Jen, my wife. I tell stories about my childhood, about my parents. There's all sorts of interesting stuff that you might find useful for your life. But if you want to skip over that and get straight to the juicy information that can help you in your life right now, then a lot of that will happen after that point. And I should also let you know that my brother's name is James Drew. I'll include his Twitter handle in the links in the show notes. And, I was so grateful that he did this. You know, he's such an awesome person, and I feel like I should interview him on the podcast at some stage in the future. He's in terms of his lifestyle and his approach towards life, he's one of the most successful people I know. So it was great to have him here. And without any further ado, I present to you my interview with James Drew interviewing myself.
Well, welcome, Simon. Thank you for agreeing to let me interview you. And it's good to be in town. And I'm very keen to dig into your thoughts this time rather than you interviewing other people. I'm interested to dig into your life and see what brought you to this point in your life and share that with your audience. And I've got a couple of questions prepared, which you've heard them before, but you haven't given me your responses yet. So I'm very interested to see how you respond. So,
well, thanks for doing the interview. Hopefully, people actually want to know this information. I'll try and make sure that whatever I say is something that hopefully is useful to people. That's what this podcast is all about, just, useful information to make your life better. I don't feel like my life has the depth of experience that some of my guests have had. However, hopefully there's some wise pieces of little snippets of my life that might be helpful.
Well, I wouldn't underestimate yourself, Simon, because I think you've had quite some experiences in your time, and let's just get into it. So before digging into your current life as a Stoic philosopher, let's step way, way back into your childhood, and then we'll work forward from there. So we're going to get real deep right now. And we'll start way, way back in the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, Australia, where we grew up. What were some of the earliest memories of your childhood?
I feel like I'm in some sort of psychological analysis here.
Well, I'm leaning back in my chair, and I'm hoping that you're reclined and relaxed, and that the thoughts begin to flow. So,
well, okay. So, earliest memories of childhood. I guess seeing as you're here with me, could probably talk about many of the adventures that we went on. Most of you in the podcast will actually know I grew up on the Sunshine Coast, and that's in Australia, in Queensland, and grew up on a farm. So I feel very, very fortunate to have grown up, around nature and doing these adventures. And, one example of a memory would be going on adventures with Jamie here. And Jamie, you'll know that there were times when, you're obviously older than me, so you were the elder brother figure taking me out and doing crazy adventures with me, and we'd go through the forests and get lost, and I'd start crying, and you'd figure out how to get out, and then there'd be times where we'd be spending hours just chopping through forests, trying to get our way out of these certain situations and having a good time. But it was awesome to grow up on a farm around animals and nature, and having the opportunity to do all this exploration that we got to do. But okay, here's a crazy memory. Here's something that my guests might find interesting. It was only about 3 years ago that our parents discovered that while we were living in one of our homes in Kurilpa, which is the little area that we lived in in the hinterland, when you and I were younger, we were hiding cocktail bombs with petrol and rag coming out of them in an underground bunker that we had created on the property. And they only just discovered this a few years ago, so I don't know if they're still there. I don't know if it's a potential liability to that to the new owners of that home, but they were there, and we did create them, and it's lucky that we didn't explode the house with what we created.
Yeah, well, I think the bunker might still be there unless they've filled it in. Another aspect of growing up in Kurilpa, we always lived on several acres of land, or bushland, or scrub as we'd call it. The scrub was never very far away. So what role do you think nature and animals played in your formative years?
Well, I think, I've said this many times on the podcast. I do really appreciate having that influence in my life, just having the ability to go through the forests and go to the waterfalls and spend time with animals. And I think that so many people don't get that opportunity when they're growing up, and so we kind of develop this indifference to nature and this attitude of it's people and nature, not it's just we're all part of the same planet. And I didn't really start thinking about this until later on, but I was grateful for that because it taught me that it's not me and nature. It's like it's everything is connected in some way. And being able to spend that time with animals, for example, you learn things about yourself by spending time with animals, and you learn things about yourself by spending time in nature and forests. And I just think that most of the problems that we see to do with the environment today are a direct result of humanity's ever increasing what's the word? There's like this gap between humanity and nature, and so we think we're so much greater than the animals, and so we don't have to treat them with respect, or we're so much smarter than nature is, so we don't have to respect the world and where we live. And so what do we have, like global warming, like climate change happening, and people living in horrible situations where just surrounded by rubbish and factory farming, and like that's a result of us saying it's us and nature, as opposed to we have to take care of this, and it's our responsibility because we are a part of this ecosystem. I don't know if it made sense what I said. But.
Yeah, no, I mean, flying foxes, the bats are one prime example. If they go away, trees don't germinate, can't spawn new trees. And so moving on, tell me about our parents, Pauline and Russell. What were some of your earliest memories of them, and how did they raise you?
Very
long leash.
Yeah. Earliest memories of our parents. There's so many memories. I guess earliest memories are, hustling away at the business, making sure that we could all live a really good life, and we lived on a smaller property when I was really young, and so we always had horses and everything, and they were, obviously, helping Charlotte with her horse riding and helping all of us with everything that we wanted to do. But great parents. I think you'll agree, we couldn't have asked for better parents. Like, we are very, very, very lucky. When it comes to the life lottery, we pretty much hit it. So I feel really, really fortunate with that.
That's all real nice stuff, but give us an example.
An example of what? Like,
I don't know, what was something Dad did or Mum did that was fun or interesting?
Well, I mean, Dad would always sing his songs on his guitar. We'd be gathered around the fireplace in that place. I don't know if this is one of the specific questions that you were going to ask, but I mean, in terms of things that I've learned from Mum and Dad, one thing that I'm very grateful for with Mum and Dad is whatever passion we all had as kids, they got behind us 100%, no matter what it was. Like, if I wanted to be riding horses and wanted to really try that, they'd help me out. They'd be there 100%. If I was doing music, they'd be supporting me 100%. It wasn't like they were grooming us to go and get a specific job and do this and do that. It was like whatever we wanted to pursue in our lives, they would just back it fully. And it also wasn't like, because they were very fortunate in that, and they worked very hard in that they had a great business that was bringing them really good money. They were able to take care of us really well. And it's not like they came from money. They built this together, and they really worked really, really hard to create the lifestyle that was going to give us the opportunities that we wanted. But it wasn't like they were just throwing money at us and saying, "Okay, cool, just do what you want." It was like they were at the gigs where I was playing with my school big band. They were at the horse shows where Charlotte was riding her horses, and they were at everywhere that we were doing what we wanted to do. They were there backing us 100%, doing like everything that they could do. And it's funny because I think back to those times, and I'm like, there were so many days when they might have been late to pick me up, or they might have, we might have been late to like a chicken show. And that's another thing that they also backed me with. It was when I had chickens, I really wanted to be showing some chickens and turkeys and everything. And Dad was out there.
An ambush show.
Oh yeah. And, Dad was out there like building things with me, like helping me with everything. And, I was impatient sometimes if they were late to things. I remember myself being impatient and being rude, and when I think back to it, it's like, wow, they couldn't have done any better. It was absolutely awesome.
Yeah, Dad was there with me when I got my first, we called him a bush basher car, $200, bought off the side of the road, old Nissan, and thrashed that round the backyard, and he just sent me off with his blessing. And when I said I want pet snakes, it was just like, oh yeah, sure. Not everyone gets that opportunity, I don't think.
Another thing they taught us was like hard work,
Yeah.
I remember when I wanted to buy, I think they stepped in and they gave us the help that we needed to an extent. And then I remember I wanted to buy a flugelhorn, and this was kind of around the time where I was transitioning from, Mum and Dad would buy, obviously they buy most of my clothes when I was super young. And, they'd help me out by buying a trumpet if I needed it, because I was learning trumpet and everything. And then I was transitioning into that time where they're like, okay, well, now he can go out there and work for things. And I remember asking Mum to help me out to buy this trumpet. And she said, well, you'll feel better about it if you work for it. So, we're not gonna do anything here. At first it was uncomfortable. And then I realized after working for a few months to make the money to do this, that it was very valuable what they did, like stepping away and saying, okay, now's your opportunity to put in some hard work and learn that whatever you want to buy, whatever you want to do with your life, it's going to take a certain amount of effort, and you need to put that in, because when you finally do receive whatever it is that you're chasing, it's going to be so much more valuable to you. And it was, it really was. Walking into the music store and like handing over, a couple of grand for this flugelhorn, I felt awesome. Because every part of that was a result of my effort. It was a reward.
I mean, although they had a really good income stream through their business celebration windows, finances weren't always there. They certainly went up and down and struggled at times. But growing up as kids, we wouldn't have known that, because anything we wanted, they made sure that we were a priority and that we got what we needed. And then everything else, they kind of step back and kind of
another thing
from us.
Yeah.
And
sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, that's
I was going to say, like, I had no idea until like very later on in my life that, there were times where they even almost like lost the farm, because they were in such tough circumstances, and I had no idea. And then, to look back and think, wow, I was, they still put me in a good school. They wanted they wanted the best for all of us, no matter what, even if it meant, that for them that was okay. We're not going to share with them like how tough we're working right now, and how crazy things are. And yes, there were very stressful times, but never did I imagine that it was so stressful for them. And then listening to Dad later on when he talks about when he was going through severe depression where he just couldn't get out of bed in the morning, and I had no idea that this was even a thing. And to think of that and think maybe of the ways that I had acted when I was younger, like very ungrateful for certain things. And now it's interesting to look back at that and say, well, they cared about us enough to not let that affect the way that we were, growing up. Yeah, it's good.
See, now we're getting deep enough, Simon.
That's good. Yeah, it's deep.
So what aspect of your childhood do you wish every kid could or should have? What experience would be valuable to others growing up?
I think it would be regular close interaction with animals. That would have to be it, because it teaches you about life. So, for example, I had at one point I had like 100 chickens and turkeys and pigeons and everything, and there was one stage where, as you know, I raised like 30 meat chickens, and the lessons that it taught me, looking back on it, every time a chicken would die when I first had chickens, it would be really sad, and I'd kind of get worried about it. And eventually I learned, okay, well, death is a part of life, because I see these chickens, they grow up, they lay eggs, they hatch these eggs. Some chickens survive when they hatch, some don't. And then I would actually raise these meat chickens and I would kill them myself, and I would learn respect for animals. And also the lesson that, okay, there is death in this world and it's going to happen. And I often share this story. I went on the Trek, which was the kind of the church activity for all the youth, where we would go and pull these carts around a massive farm for a few days, pretending to be pioneers. And I remember them bringing a whole bunch of chickens out to the youth, and we were going to kill these chickens and eat them. And it could have been a very respectful thing that we did. It could have been, okay, we're learning about what people went through, and we're learning about the fact that this is where your meat comes from. This is how it happens. It happens in a much worse way in factory farming, that sort of stuff. But I remember some of the kids kind of laughing, joking about it. We're about to chop a chicken's head off, and I think one of them kind of missed the chicken's head and kind of just like cut it a little bit, and they were kind of making out like it was a joke. And I remember thinking that that's just like the most disgusting side of humanity. Like that you can have this life in front of you that is living and breathing, and you have zero respect for it, and you don't even recognize that it has any kind of feeling, or and maybe because they're not rational, because they don't really have emotions and that sort of stuff, maybe they don't really feel a lot. But I think that's what I would say. Like, I think that the more people who can get around animals and understand that they just understand how close they are to us in so many ways, and develop that respect for animals, it really can teach you really good lessons about life. And I think, as I said earlier, it's kind of like what I think is one of the biggest problems today is our disconnect from animals and our disconnect from nature. Creates so many problems. But I think that's what I would do. I want my kids in the future to have, animals and dogs and cats and chickens and as many animals as I can get them around, because they need to learn that respect. Yeah.
Well, they have feelings just like we do. They feel pain, and then they're for farm animals. Their death is our life, and so it's a gift that they pass on to us for sure.
Even dogs, dogs can't hide emotion. Exactly what they're feeling, and it's amazing to look at a dog and to think. There are some people who kind of just think that this is just an animal, without any kind of it's just not important.
They treat them bad and they grow up aggressive.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, I don't know. That's what I'd do anyway.
I can't let you escape this question without talking about why turkeys.
Okay,
they were cool.
Everybody who knows me knows that I really miss having turkeys. Turkeys are one of the best pets, and I'm talking about big American turkeys. If you raise them right, they can be very just kind, just lovely animals. They're so stupid. They have been known to look up into the rain and drown because the rain falls into their gullets and they don't know what to do. But just these huge birds, and I had such a good time just raising them and taking them to shows, and you could just pick them up, and they're just really fun animals. Really fun animals to have. Yeah, I'd highly recommend it for anyone who has the opportunity.
And you made some good coin out of those turkeys for a while.
Some good coin out of the turkeys. I made coin out of the Japanese bantams.
Did you?
From selling eggs all around the country. I've sold Japanese bantam eggs, fertilized eggs so that people could hatch them. I've sold those eggs to every state in Australia, I think, minus Tasmania. And I've sold them to the farthest place possible from here in Australia, which is Carnarvon, right on the opposite side of Australia. So,
no.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right in the middle of Western Australia. So, yeah.
Enterprise.
All
right. So tell us about school. You went to Mapleton Primary School, which was fairly close by our house, and then also went to Sunshine Coast Grammar for middle school and high school. So tell us about something about your schooling that really stuck with you.
Well, that's another thing that Mum and Dad were pretty good with. They were very personalized in their approach to raising us. You went to a different school than I did, and that was because they knew that you would do better there, and that's where you wanted to be. And then, they spoke to one of my favorite teachers from primary school, Mr. Price, I think it was, and he kind of said, my kids go to this school, Sunshine Coast Grammar School, And he kind of said, like, look, I know your son. I think he'd do really well there, especially if he wants to do music and everything. And so they saw that Grammar had a really good music department, and they said, okay, well, if he's playing music and he loves it, we want to put him there so that we can sort of help him to keep on going with this passion of his. And I was a great school. Yeah, I feel very fortunate. In fact, I almost feel guilty talking about all this, because there are people out there who just didn't have it as good as me, and they don't have it as good as I did. And, here I am teaching a podcast about how to live a good life. And, and like, I feel bad talking about the fact that I went to, such a good school, and I was really grateful for it. And I think the best part about a school like that was obviously the teachers, and really great teachers who really helped us to find what it was that we were good at, and find what it was that we were passionate about, and then to help us to figure out how we could use that in our future in some way. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, we kind of had a different schooling makeup. I mean, I started off at a Christian college, and so a private school. Didn't like it there, and so I actually went back to a state school. And I really loved the state school that I went to, whereas you kind of started off at a state school, and then you went to a private school, and you really loved the private school. And I think in the end it's the environment and the teachers that you kind of gel with. And so, I wouldn't regret my schooling path, and I don't think you would regret yours.
No way, no. And that's what I was saying. Like, it's all about that customization for each kid. The school that you went to was perfect for you. The school that I went to was perfect for me, and that's what Mum and Dad knew. That they wanted it to be customized.
Yeah,
customized parenting. There's a company in that.
Yeah. Who inspired you growing up? You mentioned Mr. Price, but and I remember that name from a long while back. But were there any teachers, mentors, family members, or friends that had an outsized influence in your childhood?
Well,
or even in your teenage years?
It would have to be. It would have to be two people from grammar school. It was Mr. Scully and Mr. Sims. Now, these two teachers, they were the music teachers, head of the music department at the school. What they did was they basically made me believe that, okay, if I loved playing music and it was something that I was passionate about, then I could probably turn that into a career. Like, most likely could turn that into a career. And they actively encouraged it. And I remember the first day, and here's another example of Mum and Dad, being very active in our lives. I remember the first day of going to that new school. Dad actually walked me into the music building. He came in there with me, and he said, who's the head of the music? And he came with me to see them both. And Scully wasn't there at that time, but a different music teacher was. And Dad kind of said, Simon's kind of good at like improvising, and he really likes jazz. And he kind of spoke to them and said, here's my son. He's really passionate about music. What can he do here? And yes, Charlie Sims, who was one of the more inspiring people of my childhood. He was one of the heads there, and he just took me under his wing and said, awesome, yeah, if he likes jazz, like, because Charlie loved jazz, that was his thing. And so he said, let's do this. And he put me in bands and gave me opportunities in the music school. And I think that's really what a great teacher does, is they say, awesome, this kid loves this, and here's their strengths, let's use this. And he just pushed me through, and I eventually went on to study music and travel the world playing music. And that was all a direct result of, firstly, our parents pushing me to continue playing trumpet, and actually giving me the inspiration by showing me jazz music, and taking me to concerts and things like that. And then it was also a direct result of Charlie in high school pushing me to be better and saying you can actually do this as a career, and inspiring that within me. And I think that's what a good teacher does. They inspire within a kid a recognition that whatever it is that they like to do, they can do that. And that's another thing that our parents did for us, because they started their own business. That's one of the things that I'm so grateful for. Our childhood wasn't about grow up, get a steady job, get married. That's what you do, right? It was grow up and do what you love to do. That's all the focus was. And so I'm really grateful for that entrepreneurial kind of vibe that they gave us. And so I've kind of done that with everything that I do in my life. And yeah, I think those are some of that's all I'd say. I don't know how to finish that answer.
So how'd you go from didgeridoo to flugelhorn to busking to cruise ships?
Okay, the cruise ships. Okay, so didgeridoo was one of the first instruments that I liked. I went through a period where I just absolutely loved everything about like Aboriginal culture in Australia, and that was one of my little detours on my life. But oh gosh,
yeah, you've had a few of those. Turkeys was a detour. Bantams was a detour.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say it was a detour. It all led you somewhere, but
yeah,
you definitely had specific periods in your life.
Yeah,
and you even had a cowboy period where you were up on the saddle with the stirrup and all the bits and pieces and the whips and stuff like that. Then you had a turkey period, and then you had definitely an Aboriginal culture period, at which point you got really good at that didge.
Yeah, that's something I definitely couldn't do today. The cultural appropriation police would, if they looked at that, oh my gosh, that
yeah.
I really loved Aboriginal culture. But
there's nothing wrong with that. There's
nothing wrong with celebrating a different culture. I had a deep respect for it and a love for it. But yeah, I think I've done many different weird things. But in terms of going to the cruise ships, that happened because I started a bit. Okay, I'll go even earlier. So pretty much until my whole audience will know that until my 20th birthday, I hadn't read a single book. Then I went to a seminar on my 20th birthday, thanks to my good friend Lachlan Hawkins. He said, "Hey, Eric Thomas is in town at the City Hall. Come along and see him." And I was kind of reluctant. I didn't really want to go to a motivational speaker. But my life was going pretty well until then. Well, it still went well, but went to this seminar and just completely woke up. I became, as they say, woke. And the big thing that I learned there was information changes situations. So I left that seminar just a completely new person. Started reading books for the first time, read about 85 books over the next year. Got obsessed with that, started a business that absolutely fell under. And I don't want to say fail, because it wasn't a failure, because it really led me to different avenues that my life would be completely different if I didn't start that. But I got a $20,000 loan from the government, which I paid back in full over the next couple of years. But that was to start this business idea, and it really didn't work out. But I got about 6 months down the line with that, and I realized that I'm not going to be able to pay back this loan if I don't do something big. And I was like, well, I've always wanted to go on cruise ships. So I sent applications out to every cruise agent that I could find online, and within a couple of days I got a response from who I now know to be one of the best cruise agents. It's like musician agents for cruises on the market, and they got me a gig exactly where I wanted it within about a month.
Do you remember the name?
Yeah, it's oh gosh, I know it's Cindy Blackburn, and she's,
shout out to Cindy Blackburn.
Yes, shout out to Cindy. Thank you for changing my life. But something that I could probably share there is like every time something great has happened in my life, it's been a result of taking immediate action on something that I want to do. So, with this, like, it's so, if you have something that you want to do. So, for example, I wanted to get on this cruise ship. I'd never done it before. I'd always wanted to. All it took for me was to take 10 minutes to research online about cruise agents, put together a bit of a biography, get together some of the footage that I had from my music, and just email them all. Look, it takes like 20 minutes to email five agents, right? What's the worst thing that could happen? And
rejection.
Exactly, rejection. And I got rejected because like most of them didn't respond. In fact, like only one of them did respond. It just happened to be one of the best. And I kind of said to her when I sent to Cindy when I was talking to her, hey, I've seen these cruise ships in Royal Caribbean, the Oasis class, these giant ships, the biggest ships in the world. Are there any gigs on those? And she was like, well, I kind of had something else in mind, but we'll see what we can do. And then immediately gets me a gig on those ships. That's exactly where I wanted to be.
You didn't want no little ship. You wanted the big one.
I wanted the big one. Absolutely. And really, really lucky that I got on there because that was just awesome to be able to spend so much time on those ships and meet so many awesome people from around the world. Yeah.
So how did a boat leaving out of Florida lead you to Texas, young lass?
I think a few of you will know this story. I feel like I'm speaking to an audience. I'm not. I'm speaking to you. But a few other people who listen to the podcast will know this story. But towards the end of my first contract on the Oasis of the Seas, basically I was playing one night, and this gorgeous girl came in and stood at the back of the jazz club. Sorry, just a little. Whatever that is. And so I was playing and I had a great time. I was like, that's a beautiful girl, as you do. And so she actually came up to me and said hi after the show. And she said, hey, when are you playing next? And I said, I'm going to be here tomorrow night, 9:30. Come on in. It's going to be tomorrow night, 9:30. Please come. And tomorrow night, 9:30. It's just like making sure that she was going to come back and see me because I really wanted to see her again. And luckily she did. And she came right at the end of the gig. Didn't want to listen to the music. She just wanted to see me. So,
oh, yeah?
Yeah, that was rude. So she came on in and we kind of... I decided that if she came back, I was going to ask her out to pizza just to get to know her. And full disclosure, throughout the entire course of her holiday on the ship, there was no physical interaction whatsoever. If that had have happened and it had have got caught on the cameras on the ship, I would have been fired. And I loved my job way too much. Playing jazz in the jazz club with my good mates every single night. Was the best, and I didn't want to do anything to jeopardize that because we would have got fired. But every single night of that week, we would stay up until about 5 a.m. just talking, getting to know each other, and it was very, very intense because by the end of that ship, that cruise, we knew so much about each other. It was almost as if the pressure of having only 1 week and she was going back to Texas and then I would stay on the ship and then eventually go back to Australia. That pressure of, we only have a short amount of time to get to know each other. It heightened everything to the point where it was almost as if we'd spent, 2 months together getting to know each other, because we would stay up, as I said, until 5 or 6 in the morning. On the last night of the cruise, she was up with me just talking until 5 or 6 in the morning. Then she went back, spent half an hour sleeping. Then she's off the ship.
Where'd you pop the question?
Where did I pop the question? As in, like,
Where'd you
like to marry me or to
Yeah.
like go out with me?
No, marry.
Okay, married. That was in Texas.
Actually, hold up. Let's reverse. Yeah, when did you ask her to be a thing?
This is going to sound crazy, but pretty much as soon as I'll tell this part of the story because it's romantic and the audience might like it. But the day that she got off the ship, we had planned to kind of catch up, maybe go out in the town, but that didn't end up happening, much to my sadness. But I was walking back on the ship. And as I was getting back on the ship that day, I knew that, like, obviously I'd get on the ship would leave for another cruise, she'd stay in Florida for another day and then go back to Texas. And I knew that if I didn't do something, this could just be the end and like we'd never see each other again. And I couldn't let that happen because there was such a crazy connection there on the ship. And I began to tear up as I was walking back on the ship. And it was one of those things where I was like, okay, if this line doesn't go faster, I'm going to be a mess here. And this is going to be very embarrassing. By the time I got back to my cabin on the ship, I was just bawling it. I'd never felt like this in my life. And I've never cried so much in my life. I'd built such a crazy connection with this girl who I genuinely felt like could be somebody who I would want to, I didn't want to mess up here. And I kept on thinking about this quote from Jim Rohn, which was, there's no failure in pouring your whole heart and soul into something. There's only failure in not trying. And so I thought, well, this is a difficult thing because we want to get into I wanted to get into a long distance relationship here. Even though she's in Texas, I'll be in Australia. I want to make this happen. But it's something that's difficult to do. It might not work. But then I was like, okay, I just have to do this. Otherwise, I'm always going to regret it. And something that I teach people on the podcast is, fear is so much worse than regret. Regret is so much worse than fear because you can do something about your fear, but you can't do anything about regret. That's just something you're stuck with for life. And so I sent her this massive essay. It sounds crazy right now, but what you have to understand is that after a week of just intense discussions from like midnight until 5 or 6 in the morning, just really getting to know each other, we did really know each other. Like we knew so much about the other person. And I felt like, yep, it just has to happen. So I sent her this and we kind of said after a couple of days, okay, let's try this. And then, a few months later, I was back in Australia. I surprised her by flying to Texas for her birthday and then spent a couple of weeks with her there and then came back in December that year. And it was just right. Yeah, just proposed. Get it over and done with. Let's do this. And yeah, here we are in Australia, living in my little bar.
Leap of faith to just be like,
big leap of faith.
Could you pack up your life for me and come over here?
Yeah, I'm really grateful that she did. And, we'll be going back to America very soon. Within the next couple of years, hopefully that'll happen and we'll get back over there and eventually settle in America for however long we like. Yeah.
Moving on. What books... Well, actually, back up a little bit. On the cruise ship, you definitely spent a lot of time reading, journaling, and listening to podcasts. And I remember interacting with you a little bit while you're on that ship because obviously I was living over in America at that time. So, we actually weren't that far away. And you'd always send me this cool stuff that you were reading or listening to, and then I'd listen to it or read it. And from that and all those books that you read and all the people that you listened to, what would you advise people? What books, lectures, or podcasts had the most impact on your life that you would share with others?
In terms of lectures, Eric Thomas, that lecture that I went to on my 20th birthday, by far, hands down, the most important lecture that I've ever heard. But a lecture that I'd recommend, okay. I have to say the one that has impacted my life the most since then would be a 4.5-hour video on YouTube from Jim Rohn, where he does this massive lecture about life and how to live it. That has changed my personal philosophy on life more than most other things. In terms of podcasts, the Tim Ferriss podcast is incredible. There's so many out there that can teach you amazing things about life. The Hardcore History is another amazing one. The Practical Stoic Podcast is one of my favorites. But something that's completely changed my life lately has been the Joe Rogan podcast, and here's why. Because he has such interesting guests on there from so many different backgrounds, so many different cultures, different careers. It's such a wide variety of opinions, and Joe Rogan's style of interviewing is very. The reason I love it is because he doesn't come to the table with certain ideas. He's interested in knowing what the other person thinks and why they think it. So, if they're talking about their particular views on some sort of political situation of the time, he's going to want to know why they think that, what's the research, what led them to thinking that, and what's the truth. And he just asks those questions. He's very active with, he'll just mid sentence, he'll just like jump in and, okay, why do you think that? And where's this going? And okay, from where that's going, like, where's that going? And listening to so many of those podcasts, I have to say that, like, over the past year, my worldview has completely shifted on so many subjects.
Yeah.
The things that I believe now that I didn't used to believe, and the attitudes that I have now that I didn't used to have it's a direct result of filling my mind with discussions, like 3 hours at a time, discussions with people from different backgrounds that I might not have heard before that. And when you fill your mind with all of these things, you kind of start to think about things. And I think it's so important for people to be getting an influence outside of their own bubble. And, there have been times where I've kind of like looked at a podcast and the guest, and I'm like, oh, I don't really want to listen to that guest because I already have an idea in my mind of like what they're going to say. And then I'm like, no, I'm going to listen to this guest because maybe it'll change the way that I think about that type of person or that type of group or that type of, political philosophy or, I think it's important for people to push themselves to listen to people outside of their own bubble because it'll,
Well, let's pause on that fact for a second and go in a little bit deeper with a question that you haven't previously heard. But I have noticed with you, although we were raised religious, I don't ever hear you talk a lot about religion. And then same with politics. We were never shielded from political discussions, but I don't hear you talk a lot about politics. You ask a lot about it, but I don't hear you state your opinions on this or that. Does that kind of come from that fact that you want to be more open-minded and you want to perhaps listen to different sides rather than pick sides?
Okay, so firstly, one of the biggest things that I realized when I was around 20, 21 was that most of the things that I believed weren't my beliefs. They were the beliefs of everybody who raised me and everybody who was in my life. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, that's just how it happens. And it'll be the same for your kids. It'll be the same for my kids. They will be raised with whatever the dominant political, religious, lifestyle philosophy is of their parents and the people who teach them at school and their friends and everything. It's just going to create this human who thinks in a certain way. And when I realized that, my beliefs aren't my own, I was like, okay, cool. I can change things. I can learn. I can changed the way that I think, changed the way that I view the world. And I think that everybody needs to realize that. That's why when, one of the first things that I recommend in my podcast is go away and write your own personal philosophy. Look at what you believe and then make the decision that you're going to like question it and debate yourself and say, why do I believe this? And then put together your own philosophy so that it is yours and you're not just living your parents' lives or your teachers' lives or your religious leaders' lives. And what I will say about, I don't often share my opinions of a political nature. I don't often share my religious thoughts. And the reason is because I kind of see, and much to the annoyance of many people in my life, I know Jen definitely experiences this a lot, but I think I play devil's advocate a lot. I'm very much an agitator in that realm, because I think that so many people are liberal and they'll always be liberal, and if even if the Republican person is doing something good, they'll find a way to make it bad, and they'll say that. And then Republicans, they're always going to be Republican, and if the liberals do something good, they're always going to find a way to make it bad. And they're always doing this back and forth. And I kind of have fun saying, if somebody says, "Oh my gosh, Trump just did this. I can't believe it." I kind of have fun saying, "Well, he also did this. This is really good, isn't it?"
I like that.
And this is really good. And
bubbles were made for popping.
And then, but then, I'll also find myself, if somebody's saying on the other side, like, "Oh my gosh, Trump is just doing so well here. I'm so excited for what he did here." I'm kind of like, well, he also did this. He's not as good as you think he is. I actually, a lot of what I think is based around the idea that it's not as good or as bad as they say it is, or it's not as crazy or not crazy as they say it is. So Trump isn't as good as they say he is, and he's not as bad as they say he is. It was the same with Obama. It's the same with every religion. Every religion is not as good or as bad as they say it is. I think that like kind of moderation, it's kind of a Stoic thing as well, but that moderation is needed in life, like by so many people, because we tend to go to the extremes, but with everything in life, it's not as up or as down as they say it is. And a perfect example is, I heard this from Tim Ferriss, but so many people focus on luck. And so they say, successful people, they're just lucky. And then so many people focus on hard work, and they say, well, successful people, they're just hard workers. And what Tim Ferriss says is, like, successful people focus a little bit too much on it's hard work that got me here. And unsuccessful people focus a little bit too much on it's luck that got me here and got them there, right? And so what you need to say is it's in between. It's not all luck. It's not all hard work. There's a mixture, and it's the same with everything in life. It's always a mixture.
Life's not black or white. It's always a shade of grey.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, that leads me to another bit. How did you stumble across Stoic philosophy, and how would you say that has shaped your daily life?
So it was the Tim Ferriss podcast. No, it wasn't. It was the Entrepreneur on Fire podcast where he interviewed Tim Ferriss. So John Lee Dumas was doing an interview with Tim Ferriss, and one of the questions was, which book would you recommend to everybody? And it was Letters from a Stoic. And I was a massive fan of Tim Ferriss, still am. And so I was like, I've got to get this book. So I bought the book, read it.
Did it take 4 hours?
Didn't take 4 hours. Took a lot of time. And it completely transformed my life. And it kind of makes me think of something that Jim Rohn said. It's like the transition between where you are now and the miracle that you can potentially create in your life is actually taking action. So he said in one of his lectures that every lecture I do, I recommend that people buy, what's the Babylon book? The Richest Man in Babylon.
Yeah, The Richest Man in Babylon.
He said, I recommend that everybody buys this book Now, what's the difference between the people who get the results and don't? It's just about 10% of people will buy the book. The rest won't, right? And the people who buy the book, that's where the miracle happens, because you read it and it changes your life. That's what happened for me. You know, Tim Ferriss recommended this book. Maybe 10% of people would have bought it and actually read it. I was lucky enough to be the kind of person who said, okay, I'm going to buy this book, I'm going to read it. And it completely changed my life. And the reason why it changed my life was because I was obsessed with personal development books, and everything that the personal development leaders of today were saying, it was already said by the Stoics about 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I was like, this is the original homie G gangster of like personal development philosophy. Like, how do you improve your life? And what really got me about it was it made philosophy accessible, because the Stoics were very humble in their view of philosophy. It wasn't about wordplay or mind games for them. It was, this is literally just to make your life better, and it's to improve humanity. That's all that philosophy should be. You should be able to read this, get some good advice, use it immediately, and bam, your life is going to be better. And so, you know, for the Stoics, in terms of changing my life, for the Stoics, the most important things in life are virtue, wisdom, courage, moderation. These are all things that I find are kind of slowly taking over my life. It's not a fast process, but through reading, studying, making these podcasts and everything, I've noticed a change. And you look back at your life and you think, well, I would have used to get, I probably would have gotten angry at something like this back then, but I don't anymore. And it's because slowly through study, I've understood new things about myself and the world through Stoicism. And, you know, it's such a beautiful philosophy, because it teaches us that your virtue can never be taken away from you. Even if you're in a prison, even if somebody's holding a gun to your head, you always have that choice to say, no, I'm going to do the right thing. Even if we fail at that many times in our lives, which I do. And it also teaches us that wisdom is something that we need to constantly acquire. And so this past year has probably been more about podcasts for me than reading. I've read a lot less. I've listened to a lot more podcasts, and I still have that attitude of like, whenever I'm doing something that I can be also listening to a podcast at the same time and learning something, I'm going to be doing that. Whether it's exercising, working, driving, like I get excited to go on drives now, if it's like 2 or 3 hours, because I get to listen to a podcast and learn something along the way. And so having that thirst for just new opinions, and I call myself sometimes like a student of life, because I'm always trying to get some new opinion into my head that's might even challenge something that I'm thinking, or and I understand that based on where I grew up, who I am, I have certain biases in my life and the way I think, and that's something that I struggle with as well. But just having Stoicism as an influence to say you should be constantly trying to fill your mind with more wisdom and learn and become a more perfected person, it's a good philosophy to live by.
I'm someone who's intensely interested in history, especially ancient history. Mm-hmm. And so what strikes me about the Stoics and their writings is that things may change, but human nature is always. That these Greeks in the Acropolis and the Romans in their Colosseums faced almost identical challenges and issues that we still face in our life on a day-to-day basis here today. They come across the same personalities, and they have to think about things the same way we do, and that we can reach back thousands of years and learn from people from thousands of years ago, and that can directly translate to our modern lives. What do you think about that?
Well, I think what you said at the start there, like things may change, but human nature will never change. I think that's what's so beautiful about Stoicism is they teach like, yeah, things can and will always change, but here's what won't change: how to live a good life. That will never change. here's what won't change. There will always be idiots in your life. There will always be annoying people who are going to do bad things to you. That will never change. There will always be trials in your life. Life will always throw things in your way that are going to challenge you. That will never change. So they talk about these things that will never change, and they talk about the things that it's kind of like this idea of, okay, so if all these things are never going to change, that crazy things are going to come. No matter what changes you do see in your life, you can always be virtuous because that's something that doesn't change. You can always be the best version of yourself. And I think that it's awesome that we can look back and read from some of the Stoics who talked about this 2,000 years ago, because you look at the teachings and you say, this is a truth because it's lasted so long. Like you could make the argument that many of the things that the Stoics talked about are still as true, if not more true today, and more valuable today than they were when they actually wrote them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's interesting to me because religions come and go. Political philosophies come and go. Nations rise and fall. But when you have philosophy that has stood the test of time, it's like, this is really valuable stuff. Because now I know that no matter what happens, I can use this to make my life better. That's what's so exciting to me about philosophy and the ancient philosophers as well. Yeah.
Now, in terms of human nature, people I notice sometimes get obsessed by millionaires, and they think that money is the is the hallmark of success. But there are the millionaires and billionaires who rise in prominence. The Richard Bransons of this world, the Jeff Bezoses and Elon Musks, even the creators and founders of Walmart and Costco and all these other, massive enterprises. If I lined up a whole bunch of millionaires and billionaires, you probably wouldn't like all of them. What traits do you look for in rich guys that you may idolize?
This is something that completely changed for me when I started studying Stoicism, because you'll probably remember that there was a period in my life where I was very much interested in the prospect of making a lot of money.
Yes.
I very much wanted to do that, and
something did change.
Something did change. It did. It really did. And I was, whether it's a mixture of realizing that, the chances of that happening are like I can do it. I have it within me. However, I understand that it's going to take a lot. And also just learning from philosophers like Seneca who say it's not how much money you have, but it's your attitude towards wealth that is what's important. I can't remember if that's a direct quote or if it's something that he would have said, but Stoicism, it does focus on it's your attitude to what you have that's important. And so Seneca had so much money and he was very wealthy, but he also spent time practicing poverty because he knew that it could all go away at any time. And so for me, when I started studying Stoicism, I was kind of like, okay, well, let's focus not on material wealth that we all want to get to somehow, but let's focus on the things that will never change. So let's focus on becoming a stronger person so that no matter what I have, I can still live a good life. Let's focus on becoming a happy person so that no matter if I have $1 million or if I have $0, I can still be happy, because it is possible to still be happy if you have nothing. We know this because some of the happiest places on earth are slums, where people have nothing, but they're happy because they have family, and it's like that old idea of the rich billionaire meeting a fisherman on an island and saying, well, why don't you come back to America and start your fishing business over there? You could make so much money. And then the guy's like, well, then what would I do? And the billionaire's like, well, you could retire on an island with your family. He's like, well, I'm already doing that. It's like,
yeah,
I'm already here. I've done that. But so my ideas of what I want in my future have completely changed through Stoicism, and I have tamed that kind of lust for money. And, now if you asked me, like you just did, like what would you look for in a millionaire? I say I wouldn't look for a millionaire. I'd look for somebody who has a good attitude towards their money. And if the goal was for me to learn from them about how they've made all their money, which would be great. Like I encourage people to do that. If you have a mentor who can teach you how to make a lot of money, that's awesome, because that's a good goal. And that's something that I learned from Jim Rohn. I know I'm jumping around here, but Jim Rohn taught that don't set a goal to become a millionaire because of the money. Set a goal to become a millionaire because of the type of person who it will create of you in order to achieve that goal. So you have to be a certain type of person to be able to become a millionaire. You just do. There are certain things that you have to do. There's a certain amount of time that you have to spend, and the certain knowledge that you have to have in order to get that goal, right? Unless, of course, luck plays into it, and then there are different circumstances. But so I would look for a millionaire who has come from nothing and has achieved that through more hard work than luck. And I would choose somebody who has a good attitude towards their wealth. And I would look at them and say, okay, how much are they tipping, when they get a meal? How much charity are they involved in? What's their attitude? Is it a scarcity mindset, or is it an abundance mindset? Like, do they want to share this? Do they want to do good things with it? It's more about their own personal philosophy around why they have money and what they're going to do with it than it is about how much money they have, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think we're certainly lucky to live in an era where we have these great examples where people get $1 billion and they say, well, I'm signing half of it away to vaccines in Africa, or I'm going to build a space company. We have these people that just say, damn it, I've got a lot of money and I'm not going to just sit on that pile of money like Scrooge McDuck and swim through it. I'm going to actually put it to work. And we're lucky to live in an era where we have those people.
Yeah.
So we recently had a death in our family, our grandmother. And so that makes you think a little bit about your own life. When you get to 80, what will be your gift to the world, do you hope?
I've often told people this, but I genuinely feel like my purpose, the purpose that I want to follow in my life is, am I helping people to live a better life and to achieve new goals in their life? And to, how many people will say at the end of my life, my life was better because I knew Simon, And I honestly think that should be the goal of everybody here on earth. It should be like, how many people are going to say that I'm a better person because I knew you? And so I genuinely do not care if at the end of my life I still am making the same amount of money that I make now. I genuinely don't care if I don't have an empire or I don't have, a huge house. Oh my gosh, that's something that changed with Stoicism. I would love to just have a small farm with a small house and just have some animals and grow my own food, Yeah. But I think at the end of my life, I would want to make sure that, as a result of me being here, something happened that was positive on this earth. And I had a podcast for a little bit. I only did 15 episodes, but it was based around interviewing people who were inspiring in my life. And then I would interview people who inspired them, and then people who inspired them. So the idea behind that was that, if you influence one person to live a better life, they're going to be an influence of maybe a couple of people. And then those people will... So really, you can impact millions of lives just by focusing on changing one person's life. I remember hearing recently this Buddhist maxim, which is tend to the part of the garden that you can touch, right? Too many people think, oh, well, if I can't make a massive difference, then I'm not going to make a difference. If I can't make $1 million, then then what's the point?
Yeah.
If I can't start a charity, then what's the point? Why don't you just focus on, one of your close friends, give them a good book that changed your life, and say, here's a good book, read this.
Yeah.
Why not just do that? Because that could impact millions of people. The reason why I have this podcast is because on my 20th birthday, my best friend Lockie took me to a seminar, and I learned something, and I started reading, and then I started listening to podcasts. I started getting knowledge, and I started learning more about the world, and I started learning about Stoicism, and I got excited about it. I started this podcast, and now, almost up to 420,000 downloads from people all around the world. I'm coaching people. I'm getting emails from people saying, I had depression. Now it's so much better because I'm listening to your podcast, learning about Stoicism. People emailing me saying, my relationships are better. My life is completely turning around. Thank you so much. That is a result of my friend saying, hey, come along to a seminar, and think of all the lives that changed. And so if people can just focus on that part of the garden that they can touch, focus on what you can control right now, who you can influence, you will end up completely changing the course of history just by recommending a book or a seminar or a video or podcast to a friend. That's all.
I couldn't think of a better spot to leave it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Simon. Thank you for agreeing to do this interview.
Thank you, Jamie.
I'm incredibly proud of you. And
Stop it.
Yeah. So, no, I wish you all the best, and thank you for taking the time.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Practical Stoic Podcast. I hope it's been valuable for you. And if you'd like to support the show, then you can go to patreon.com/Simon Drew. If you'd like to try mindset coaching with me, then you can book your first free consultation by going to risetothegoodlife.com/coaching. To join the community, just go to Facebook and search for the Practical Stoic Mastermind. The links to all of these places are included in the show notes, but for now, this is Simon Drew signing out.